Yep, I am coughing a little bit today. So my immune system has been activated. You could even hear it in my voice. It sounds a little nasally, but that's just because we have aggressive snow. The climate shifted. It was relatively warm yesterday and it became really cold. And so then tomorrow it's going to climb up again, or this next week. And there'll be another climate change and another amount of growth that will develop, and demons be on the move, and people are going to be feeling whatever they feel. People know what they feel. They know what they don't feel. And I'm going to get some water. Hold on. This morning I've been blowing my nose. I just had a little bit of a sandwich, one of those breakfast sandwiches that I bought, frozen ones, and it wasn't like I didn't have any weird sleep last night. I didn't have any weird dreams. It was just that we're in climate change, and when climate changes aggressively from the barometric pressure going way up or way down, people then feel stuff. They feel their immune system shifting. The cures that they have are not cures anymore. It becomes then something on the move. So, yeah, I thought I would not be doing more Facebook Lives because they're doing some kind of updates to their system, because they just had a recent update trying to do stuff with ads and other stuff. And so yesterday I guess I got caught up in the middle of the updates that then was re-updated this morning or last night, and I updated my phone and the Facebook app, and now I'm back to be able to download, not transfer videos. But I couldn't download the video that I did yesterday, and so I figured, if I was Facebook, I'd want to keep all the Facebook Lives undownloadable and keep it on the Facebook. But the beauty of humanity is sharing information. Even though it may have originated from Facebook, and I download the video because I've done the work. I use them as a medium so everybody can know where my videos originate from. But if I want to upload it to YouTube, I should be able to do that. But again, if they want to play those games of, well, everything should stay on Facebook and only be transferred to other Facebook partners, I can understand that. But again, the beauty of humanity is the ability to share information without going through paywalls or making it harder for the artists to do what they do. So I don't know what exactly is going on. I don't know why even my video yesterday was blocked from Russia, but I only can speculate, and it doesn't mean I know for sure. But I'm always prepared to change what I do and change the course of what I do at any given moment, because life can happen. Life changes. And so I was kind of in a pissy mood anyways, because I hate being a Generation X sometimes, because people do ignore you. Even my own peers ignore me, okay? My own peers don't take me seriously. My own peers are either bowing down to a boomer or praying to a millennial who's shaking her ass at you and telling you that you should do this and this because she's hot and beautiful. So it sucks being a Generation X when you have your own mind and your own peers just don't take you seriously. They think you're stupid. So I was really pissy yesterday. So, it doesn't really matter at this point, but because the train has left the station for so many people, and those who didn't take me seriously the last 3 fucking years, well, they'll have their own shit to deal with. And I tried to warn people 3 years ago, but again, if they're not ready to hear information, people will wait till the 11th hour and expect someone to save them. And there is no saving people who haven't conditioned to save themselves. So even though I was a little bitter yesterday and was going like, wow, people only listen to hot chicks or old sages. Well, it's true. And then I'm like, well, why am I even doing this? Why am I even spending the time doing this? Well, because the reason why I do this is because I want to solve my own problems. I want to understand how this universe works. I am so excited by understanding the world that I live in. And I know I can comprehend the things that I read. And I have analogies and other context that I can work with to help me understand things so much better. And when I'm able to write it out, because that's the beauty of this world, is you're able to write stuff out with an audience that will say yay or nay, and it doesn't even matter what they say. but you're able to even see yourself and listen to yourself and even say, oh, wait, I'm looking at now myself, watching my own videos, looking at my own posts, and I see a mistake here. Let me go and correct that. Because this morning, that was one of the things that I figured out when I was taking a shower, and I'm remembering what I wrote about the blood types. Remember that I said that the blood type O are the carriers of the antibodies, right? We have the antibodies for all the antigen out there. And when we get exposed to new antigen, we'll develop new antibodies, and we have the substance for it. But what I forgot to say was that when those antibodies leave the body, when I'm coughing and sneezing and blowing my nose, they become antigen to somebody else. So if I'm blowing out A and B antibodies that convert to antigen to someone who is an A or B, well, relative to what it is I'm spitting out and relative to what blood type they are, they could have an antibody for my antigen or they could not have one. And so then I realized, oh shit, yeah, we are the carriers of antibodies as far as blood type O, but all of what we put out there is antigen to other people, and even more so to blood type A and B who don't have the antibodies for their own specific blood types. They only have antibodies for their opposite blood type. Would be like if you were A, then you have the B antibodies, but you don't have A antibodies. Only the B blood types have the A antibodies. And that's one of the hardest concepts I had to learn the last 3 years. So sometimes just, thinking about stuff after I've written it and looking at what I've written and then pointing out my own mistakes, trolling myself, so to speak, because trolls will point out what they think is a mistake in your world. And sometimes they could be friendly trolls and say, oh, I think there's a mistake here. And then either if you're open to seeing what they're talking about, then you can go and research it. But if you already researched what it is that you've written and you already found the corroborating evidence, the scientific proof, then you're just like, oh, I'm not fighting opinions here. This is not what I'm at. So I troll myself. I troll the fuck out of myself. I watch my own videos and find the mistakes that I've made, and I watch my own posts and I read them and reread them and I think about them in all types of situations. So, I was prepared yesterday to just, stop fighting the system, because even with all these copyright things with music and all that, and we're able to use the clips of music that's in the Facebook Reels when they give you those options to choose from. But somehow, I don't know if they take those clips first without the permission of Sony or whoever, and then when somebody brings up a stink, like Sony brings up a stink and says, hey, there's a copyright claim, then okay, then they go and pay for that music because someone used it. I don't know how that works. I would assume that Facebook pays for all the clips and all the copyrights that they use as far as music and whatever, but I don't know. So they're in the process of doing, a configuration, revising their policies and procedures, and then we get caught in the middle not knowing if they're changing the algorithms or changing things. And so I'm just prepared to change when I need to change. And when I realized that was just a glitch because of their own updates that need to be re-updated, then okay, I can go back and forth. But then that also gave me the latitude to think about blood type, because last night when we were done eating dinner and we wanted to go to the lake to see if the lake was full, right before that, I was making my brain move, because I'll tell you, when you finally release the demons and you have now, I won't say an empty vessel, but you have all these brains that you want to use them for something, it's hard just to be like, a blank slate and just look at the wall and just have nothing there. No, you want to keep things moving. So what I keep things moving, I keep trying to pick apart everything and understand everything and reduce everything down to most simplest concepts, so I can just say, hey, this is what this is, and say it off and rattle it off like in 2 words or less, taking 50-word sentence and reducing it down to like a one sentence of like 7 words. I mean, it is an art to take 50 words and reduce it down to 7 words. Is it even possible? Absolutely, because you have to know how to bring in certain words that would then be like a footnote that a person who understands meanings and definitions and concepts would get it. But those who don't have the background of those words and even the concepts, they'd have to go and Google it and look up the meanings and the context and how they'd be used and all that. And so that's the beauty of the J world, is when you release those demons, you could take 50-word sentence and reduce it down to a 7-word sentence, and you would still be able to convey it to those who are relatively educated. Those who aren't relatively educated, they would need those 50 words to explain everything, but then that would be really labor intensive to someone who's already studied that background. And so that's why I studied everything down from the most micro, the basic shit a couple years ago: positive and negative, understanding positrons, neutrons, protons, electrons, and all of that, and understanding, prostaglandins and all the different basic shit. So that way, later on, I can understand the more headier concepts, the more advanced concepts, be able to write in ways that would still apply the rules of math and the rules of expanded notation, the rules of physics. Not that I'm going into really advanced formulas, because I'm not trying to pick apart some of these formulas and questions that those who are in the advanced physics and chemistry are asking the population to go and solve these problems that they need to be solved. I'm just trying to survive and know how to just say the things that I know in a really clear, succinct, right to your face, to the point way. So that way, I could feel good that all what I've done the last 7 years was for nothing. It was for everything. That I didn't waste my time the last 7 years. I didn't. Because now that I've reduced everything down to the most simplest thing, and I know how to deal with this climate change, and yeah, it sucks. It fucking sucks, but it's survivable. But you have to understand what it is you're working with. And when you tell people, hey, you better study your blood type, you understand your blood type, you understand lifestyle and belief system, understand all this shit, and also give my background of why it is that when I'm around diverse company, I blow up like a freaking Stay Puft marshmallow. Now you know that blood type O's gain the substance when they're around diverse company, which is why some people are gaining so much weight in this environment, because they are blood type O and they are developing so many resources. They have the antibodies already within that can replicate just as fast as its exposure, but then you also have to change them out. You have to release demons. But people who are really severely obese are not releasing demons. Remember when the climate changed? I remember when the climate changed in 2019, 2020. And I noticed that my body was getting bigger. My boobs were getting bigger. My ass was getting bigger. My belly was getting bigger. And then I was also writing so much. I remember watching The Walking Dead a couple years ago and writing like 40 pages. Remember that when I said I've written 40 pages, 30 pages? That was right after I released my last, the book before this last book, The Evolution of the Jelly Juice. Then I got to writing my next book. Okay? And that was the one that I have out now. I started writing my next book as soon as I released the other book, and then I discontinued the other book because there's no reason for it. Now I have the latest book. But I was getting bigger. I was getting full of knowledge. So I was bringing in knowledge of words and basic shit, picking apart the universe, picking apart history, picking apart anthropology, and taking on microbes, going out there in the public with my husband, not realizing how aggressive, going to that wedding, going to that bachelor party, jumping into a tub full of a cesspool of microbes. My dog was still alive at the time. I was still drinking alcohol at the time too. And then in 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023, all of that shit went away. It had to, or I'd fucking die. Because I would become so big and so sick, or get some kind of fast-moving cancer. Okay, so I guess I'm back on Facebook. Not that I was ever gone, but I would be prepared if I had to fight against flipping I don't know, glitches. I'm just, whatever. But I just don't understand why my video was blocked in Russia. It can't be viewed in Russia. What is it? What's up, Russians? Okay, so just FYI, if I don't like your business page of all the therapies, please do not take offense. So I get people that like ask me to like their page. It's full of therapies and full of this, full of that. No, I'm not. I mean, if you're selling just knickknacks from wherever, okay, maybe, but I don't know. Nah, I just don't, yeah. I'm not gonna like therapy shit. Okay, so let me just sort of recap the last video, but not really. So if you have no kids, not a hot chick, so you're not a hot chick, or a chuck, which is a hot chick or chuck, a hot male or female, or if you're not an old sage, and you are middle-aged, or an old sage, and you are middle-aged, no one will listen to you. So if I don't look like, you know, the Gaia mother that has the wrinkles and the flowing outfits and the hair in the bun with stuff in their hair, and you're looking like some, you know, I don't know, energy healing person, right? Or if you don't look like you're about to go and have sex right there with everyone, whoever asks, no one's going to fucking listen to you. I learned that the last 7 years. They'll just laugh at you. So if you don't look like a hot chick or a hot chuck, or if you don't look like some Gaia mother that's going to go and do chakra shit on you, then no one's ever going to listen to you. So I learned that the last 7 years. Gen X curse strikes again. Now, I'm not saying everyone. There's some people that are getting where I'm coming from. But now that I know this, that's another layer of programming I don't have to be accountable for. And so yesterday I was kind of bitter about a lot of shit. And I was like, I'll let the millennials and the boomers run our society into the ground. Because that's what they were programmed to do. Run our whole society into the ground. Okay? And that's so true. Look at all the millennials out there. They're not going to change the way they do shit. Well, why should they? They have a kid to feed. They have a family to raise. They have expenses. Well, you know, the system is telling you it's time to slow down and stay home and stay safe, taper down your consumption and all this other stuff. And you know how people are, they're not going to change. So the system already knew that. So they're fine. They're like, okay, well, if you don't want to take cues from us and change, because we're suggesting that you might die being out there around a lot of people, then we will allow you to run society into the ground. We'll allow you to sell your remedies within reason. We'll allow you to go and do whatever, like go on the planes and trains and automobiles and do whatever. Okay, so I mean, millennials, they have weight to them as far as their word carries weight because some of them look really hot. So they're going to sell you the latest remedy, the latest surgery. They're going to sell you the latest, you know, travel itinerary that's going to be so beautiful, right? Because that's what people want. That's what people want. And when people want what they want and they don't realize the climate has changed, shit's going to happen, and it is happening, and it's just slowly and increasingly getting a little bit more aggressive. Millennials are going to run everybody into the ground, and so will the boomers, because the boomers can be like doing the same thing. And so I tried, you know how hard I tried to help people. And of course, you know, people can only help themselves if they even are aware of how programmed they truly are. I'll tell you, man, it's freaking insane out here, but everywhere. So this is where I'm finally set myself free, because I've been trying to free myself from this obligation to help all of you. Yeah, I was ready to leave yesterday. I mean, just leave, you know, this information. But I'm so addicted to picking apart the world and strategizing survival, even if it's not me. I mean, I'm blood type O. I'm not blood type A and B, but others are. But I get off on trying to figure out and strategize everything down to its most infinitesimal degree, and like bean counting. I like accounting. I like bean counting. I like bean counting microbes. I like applying the bean counting methods of biological, financial, whatever out there into the population of survival. And what do people have to bean count in their own world for survival? Okay? And so I pulled out all the stops, even at the expense of people hating me, which I already expected anyways, right? But I can't compete with old sages and hot chicks and chucks shaking their asses at everyone. I mean, I was never meant to, but at least now I know why. At least now I know why. And I will stop resisting the millennials and the boomers doing what they do, what they were programmed and intended to do. I'm not going to stop anyone. I'm not really resisting. I'm just pointing out stuff. But part of me does resist what they're doing. But what's the point, right? They're going to do what they do. People are happy until they're unhappy. And if they're happy and then they die suddenly, it doesn't even matter anyways, right? So let people be happy until they die suddenly. Whatever, fine. But I can't compete with an old sage or a hot chick chuck shaking their ass at everyone. I was never meant to, but at least now I know why. At least now I know why. And I will stop resisting the millennials and the boomers doing what they were programmed to do. It doesn't mean I will take part. It just means I'm done. Many of you will breathe a sigh of relief, but please don't expect me to feel sorry for everyone's situation because you were given all the information and you chose whatever you chose. I can have sympathy, but I can't be emotionally invested. And so when in that moment, when you're ready to fucking quit everyone and everything, well, you're not really quitting, but you're just like so pissed that people just don't understand. But you're not even pissed. You're just like, fuck. I mean, that's the human instinct or human part of me is like, I want people to understand, but of course you can't make them understand. So, yeah. So, I mean, I'm over it, I guess. Oh my God. So you hear that? That's my immune system activation. That's the conditioning process. And so I did a screenshot of Justine Bateman and Brooke Shields. And I said that Gen X are going to go one of two directions. They're going to embrace the accelerated aging process and put it out there that this is me aging gracefully. So Justine Bateman saying she's aging gracefully, and then Brooke Shields still carries a lot of her youthful looks from way back in the 80s. And so she looks relatively, youthful. And so Gen X will either embrace her old sage persona or try to channel millennial youth. Because in our society, we do not embrace middle-aged people. So Generation X is the variable. And so someone posted something about confidence yesterday. And here's the thing. I challenge everybody. I do. But I don't do it on their Facebook. I'm not trying to confront people to their face and cause a war on their page. Because that's not nice. You shouldn't cause a war on anyone's page. If you want to cause a war, cause it in yourself. Let people come at you and cause a war, and then you block them because they have no business causing a war in your world. But everyone is entitled to have a perspective on their own Facebook. So I looked at someone's Facebook and they're talking about, what is confidence? And a confident person would never compare themselves to somebody else. A confident person would never feel like they have to be better than somebody else. And I'm like, oh God, here we go. It's the blind leading the blind. Let's just rise to the level of the lowest average person. That's essentially what people do. When they hang out in groups, and I'm going to tell you this for what it is. People hang out in groups. They rise to the level of the smartest person in that group. And if there's only one person that's supposed to be the smartest person, they're not allowed to rise above that person. Because if you do try to rise above the smartest person in a group situation, you will be chopped down, you will be excommunicated, you will be put down, you'll be insulted down to size. That's why I don't hang out in group situations. Because there's always a king bee and there's always a queen bee. And when those queen bees and king bees feel challenged by anyone that they perceive is smarter than them, then they take the whole group and radicalize people against you. Even through subterfuge, even through passive-aggressive bullshit, even through comments. That's what I don't hang out with millennials. I don't. Because that's the tactics of millennials and even the boomers. And Gen X, who bows down to millennials or boomers, do the same thing. It's the Gen X that doesn't play those games with millennials or boomers that might even get where I'm coming from, and they're on their own most of the time because they already experience the bullshit that millennials pull with each other, and they already experience the bullshit that boomers pull with each other. So then the Gen X who've been on their own have a chance But the millennials, they're like the bookends of the boomers. And they play those games, and I won't play those games. So I'm on my own. And then I don't hang out too many Gen X people because they either play with those two worlds. So confidence is knowing you're better than the world that's out there, but you come off humble. Some people can say right now, my Facebook, I don't come off humble. But when I'm out there in the population around mixed company, even though people know what I say on Facebook, I don't go and push this shit in their face. I come off like everybody else. You get the luxury to know how I think. You can use it against me or use it for me, whatever. I don't care. Because I'm not afraid to show everything that I have. I have nothing to hide. But I will still come off humble and respectful and assimilate to that situation. But it's those that see my Facebook and then they treat me as if I was talking to them personally. But those that want to hide their true things, their true thoughts, and they want to play passive aggressive and all this other shit, that's subterfuge. That's deception. I don't fucking play that. What you see is what you get. What you see on my Facebook is what you'll get, but not like to your face. That's who I am. But I will still be respectful to your face. And I will never challenge anyone in their own house or even to their face. You have the options. Diversity is fucking beautiful if you can handle it. If you can't handle it, it doesn't even matter what people do. You will be around homogenized people that will, what is it? That will massage your fucking ego. So confidence is knowing you're better than the other world that's out there, but you come off humble because no one wants to be average. So please don't lie to the world. Everyone wants to come off special. Even though you're not special, I'm not special. People want to come off as holier than thou. Or you wouldn't have a Facebook account with followers. The world will be a better place if everyone thought they were better than the other person. You might even have a sharper society from that situation. Because we all want to become better than we were yesterday. Jillian, that's an assumption. Why do people go to the medical holistic system? They're feeling bad. They're feeling less than, so they're getting help from someone who's not going to make them feel less than. So they want to be better than they were yesterday. Right? I mean, if you're in a situation, like, you're going to work and you're like, damn, this sucks. I'm going to go on vacation. Everyone wants to do something better than where they were yesterday. They want to be in a vacation situation. They want to have another degree. They want to have a different friendship with somebody or something, or they want to do something a little bit different. Even it's just something, just going on vacation is saying that you want to do something different because you're tired of the mundane. You're tired of the same shit over. You want something to look forward to. That somebody want to be better than yesterday is something to look forward to. So, because we all want to become better than we were yesterday. How do you do that? You give people something to compare themselves to. Let people pick apart what they think they should be comparing themselves to. Average people only rise to the level of who they surround themselves with. Who they surround themselves with. And they don't allow anyone better than them in their world because they have to be the one who knows everything in their world. And so that's why some people stay by themselves. Because I'd rather be king of nobody than be bowing down to somebody. I'm not bowing down to some queen bee or king bee. Millennial or boomer or some Gen X. I'm not fucking doing it. They follow people who are better than them, and then they become better themselves. I follow George Soros. He's had a lot more experience than I follow the Rockefellers or Rothschilds. They have a lot more experience in this world. I follow those that have a lot of degrees because there's some information that maybe I might be able to learn from and spin it. I'll watch these TV shows and pick apart and pick things out that would be valuable to me. So people follow people who are better than them, and then they become better themselves. And they don't have to go to blows in company trying to be queen bee or king of the hill. And they certainly do not run groups to be the god in that group. Yeah, I remember when I was running those groups, I felt like I was fucking God. My moderators thought that too. And then there was a whole Julius Caesar way back in the beginning of the J world. My moderators stabbed me in the back. Because I'm like, I'm not trying to block everyone from the group. I want to bring in everyone. They're like, no, only the conspiracy people, not mainstreamers. And so I became the sacrificial lamb. I became the Julius Caesar, and the 40 senators or the 40 moderators or the 20 or whatever were like, boom, boom, boom. So I became the Julius Caesar in the beginning of the J world. So they certainly do not run groups to be the God in that group. Right? If you want to be better than other people, you don't run a group. You don't. Because then you will only allow people to rise up to a certain level. It's when I released people next to me. It's when I released the group. When I finally just stayed on my own and just had the latitude to say whatever the fuck I wanted. I didn't have to appease and be controlled by someone next to me or feel like I should not offend someone next to me or anyone in the group. Then I said whatever I needed to say and I became king of my world versus bowing down to somebody else, even my own group members. When I had the freedom to even insult, or not say insult, but challenge even the people that were following me. Because I do, and I did. Nobody's immune to being challenged. Even people in the J world. That's freedom. That's being king of my own world. Bowing down to no one. And so nobody stops people from trying to be better than who they were yesterday, and even the people around them, they stop themselves by being jealous of those who want to be better want to better themselves and surpass other people. Fuck yeah, I want to surpass my parents. Fuck yeah, I want to surpass everyone out there. Fuck yeah. That's the beauty of being alive, is that you're able to, well, not all the time. The beauty of today, this world of Facebook and Facebook Live and your own Facebook and your own house, is that you can be better than you were yesterday and even try to be better than those out there. But in the old world, if you try to do that in a group of people, they will come down on you like the 40 senators and destroy you. That's why those who have a different thought process, those who are different, those who are smart, nerdy, the schoolyard is the same thing in families. It's the same thing in groups. You try to surpass the queen bee, she will find a way to destroy you. Abso-fucking-lutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. That's why I left California, because the queen bees out there. Oh yeah, if I do anything different, say anything different, it was the comments, it was the jabs, it was the icing out, it was all of that. It was oh, you're not like us. It is the actual intentional. Not even mentioning you in a fucking eulogy. And I don't do shit to that person. That's the queen bees in our society. I'm allowed to question everything, in this world. I didn't say any names. I didn't say, people can make assumptions. I keep things relatively general. There are things that people say like, oh, she might be talking about this person, but who fucking cares? This is my fucking world. And I still have an appreciation for everyone that influenced me the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Just because I didn't agree with everything that was going on doesn't mean that it gives you a personal license to take offense. But people do, and whatever. But that's the thing. Queen bees, king bees will destroy anyone that they think is challenging their authority, their power. So then you don't want to be in a group situation, or else you will be a minion. You will be a follower, a minion. You'll be the sacrificial lamb, because yes, the kings and queens need sacrificial lambs so they can stay above everybody else. When you don't have a group, when you don't have people around you, you're not part of a family, you're not part of a group situation, friendship situation, you're not part of some kind of collective, that has that kind of power, then you have the power to surpass even your own expectations. Much less, of course, you surpass other people. Oh, what does that mean? Surpass. Well, it's all relative to what you think is surpassing somebody else. So that's why I stay home and stay safe. I'm always trying to better myself. And I'm sorry if that's offensive to you. Someone said somewhere that confidence is silence. I'm like, are you serious? Confidence is silence? No, that's someone's timid, afraid to say anything because they're afraid that someone's going to challenge them. But see, those that are scared of being challenged won't say a damn fucking thing. They won't make waves. Those that have to cater to an audience, a homogenized audience that they don't want to insult or even challenge. They'll say something up to a certain point. Up to a certain point. But they only go as far as that certain point, because if they go any further than what they think is going to piss off their audience, they will lose their minions. They will lose the people that are keeping them alive. So they only go up to a certain point and then they stop. And then they say those that speak a lot more are not confident, and those that are silent are confident as they are speaking. And I'm like, are you serious? It's interesting dynamics watching people try to play. I'm going to be the freedom person to say whatever, but I only say something specific that's really good for my audience, but that's about it. Or, yeah. But they can't go further. They can't take it further. Why would they want to? Well, why even say anything if you're not going to be able to challenge your audience and even maybe insult them in some way? What's the point? Oh, that's right. They're food. You're feeding off your people. You hear that, right? My immune system activated. And so, yeah, measles cases and outbreaks, it's happening. Remember, all the old diseases that we had under the cures and the VACCINESs, in a slower frequency environment, things were relatively stable. But when you have climate change or the implementation of the new 5G, 6G, 7G infrastructure, which isn't inherently bad, but if you're holding a lot of opposing forces within, then things that were once a pandemic and were put under a cure type situation are now going to be more accelerated, and they'll come to surface and be passed around again and mutated again with other microbes, causing then what you saw 1983 versus 2024, and you see the family of VACCINESs. Well, those family of VACCINESs are the mutations that people develop in this environment when they're hanging out together, developing antigen because they're coughing and sneezing and blowing their nose, and it's out there mixing in with people breathing it in, mixing in their chemistry and releasing it out there, causing another mutation, which is causing a family of VACCINESs, which is also causing another family, another viral offspring. And so that's why you have influenza 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, because that's all the offspring. In a high frequency environment, you'll have a lot more offspring of viruses, maybe not so much children, but a lot of offspring of new viral mutations. In a slower frequency environment, it was a slow viral offspring mutation, but in a high frequency environment, it's going to be accelerated and people are not going to survive it. And so climate change wakes up and replicates, accelerating everything that was put to sleep through the vaccines and the cures market. And so measles is a highly contagious virus that lives in the nose and throat mucus of an infected person. It can spread to others through coughing and sneezing. Others can become infected by breathing contaminated air or touching an infected surface and then touching their eyes, nose, and mouth. Measles symptoms don't appear until 10 to 14 days after exposure. They include cough, runny nose, inflamed eyes, sore throat, fever, red blotchy skin rash. There is no treatment to get rid of an established measles infection, but over-the-counter fever reducers or vitamin A may help with symptoms. Lab tests are typically required for this condition. Vaccination offers protection against this condition. But remember, everything is temporary, and do you have what it takes to develop something out of nothing? What would mean nothing? Well, if you don't have as much of the reserves to develop antibodies, that's why people don't survive infection. They don't have enough reserves. And so then that's why they offer then the monoclonal antibodies as a temporary stay of execution. But even then, those are temporary. Nothing is permanent. You still have to be able to develop your own protection. If you can't, then you have to stay away from a lot of people. Stay home and stay safe. Wear a mask, wear gloves, wear whatever. But you know how people are when they don't understand blood type. Those in the anti-V world, those in the anti-everything world, anti-mask world, they're like, oh God, you're stupid for wearing a mask and getting a V. Well, in the old world, in a slower frequency environment, it was necessary and it did help. But now we're in a different environment with a higher accelerated frequency atmosphere. Obviously, you got to talk to your doctor, and even then, doctors are perplexed as to why there's turbo cancers. Well, it's not because of the V's, really, because the V's are just representation of your friends and family mutating things and causing them to have the system develop a temporary thing called a therapy. It's the fact that things are replicating so fast that even doctors can't get ahead of it. Even individuals at major deficits can't get ahead of that growth. They don't have enough to them to develop a protection. Again, you need money to make money. It's all finances. And so that's why when I was around diverse people and I got bigger and bigger and bigger, if I didn't have the antibodies to be able to replicate to protect me in a diverse community, then the beast within that doesn't have any countering force, right? The antigen, the opposing forces within would be able to be so organized and become a fast-moving cancer, or start eating away at the infrastructure of your body, mind, and spirit, which is why you're seeing the turbo cancers and people are getting diagnosed so aggressively in this environment, because they don't have the protection. They don't have the energy conversion. Well, they have the energy conversion, but they couldn't afford it. Now, what's on the move and what is being fed and what is influential is the opposing forces that have commandeered, like a parasitic entity, like a possession. So that's why the coughing and the sneezing, the blowing the nose and the headaches and all the things that people feel, the rashes, is like an exorcism. I mean, my husband says he has, a few little things here and there. His hands are hurting. I had a little bit right here where it was swollen. Well, it's not swollen anymore. But remember that I have also here, I have this ganglion, whatever we call that, ganglion cyst. It's still there, but it's not bad. Okay? So, yeah. You got to be able to develop antibodies or be able to fill in the hole. So if you don't have the antibody protection, then your body is going to be using itself. It's going to have to repair what was used up from that antigen. And you have to release the antigen. And you have to, and that's why I say people, when they're around, so they're blood type A, and they're around another blood type A, they both are giving each other antigen that they have no antibodies for. But in a slower frequency environment, not a big deal. They would just grow old gracefully together, kind of canceling out the activity, and they just take from each other until they age relatively the same. And so then you see these old couples that are sitting on the porch swing dying together. Okay, that's the Hollywood ending, is growing old together in the hospital, holding hands, dying together, or sitting on the porch swing in their Midwestern town, dying together at 90 or 100. But now, in this environment, you have people who are both blood type A's, but they don't have the antibodies for each other's antigen. Then it's rapid deterioration relative to where someone came from. See, in a slower frequency environment, the system can kind of have time to redirect and give cures or foods or take away foods and add foods or whatever. But in this environment, if you came from a major deficit and you're blood type A, married to a blood type A, you'll be the one to deteriorate faster than the other one. And so what used to be back then when they were doing blood compatibility marriages, it was all relative to the frequencies in that environment, allowing things to happen progressively and slowly. But in this environment, with all the deficits that people are under from all the rampant procreation and remedies and everything else. That article that talks about compatibility, blood type O and O, they didn't, I mean, the Rh factor is also a factor, but I'm O positive. My husband's probably an O negative. He came from a really a strong background, but I came from a deficit, so I have a lot more to catch up with him. Now I think I'm pretty much caught up to him. We're both blood type O's. And even though we're not like literally canceling each other out, though it's up to him if he wants to release those demons, because he also obviously is a blood type O, taking on the weight of the world and everything. There's a relative equilibrium, but the deterioration process is based upon how that person is releasing their demons and taking on substance. And so that's still an individual process, even though our blood types are relatively the same, which they are, but it's how then you react to symptoms, your lifestyle, your belief, all these other factors. Nature and nurture both go hand in hand. And so obviously talk to your doctor about therapies. And so measles cases in 2024, as of February 22nd, 2024, a total of 35 measles cases were reported by 15 jurisdictions: Arizona, California, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Louisiana, Maryland, Minnesota, Missouri, New Jersey, New York City, and Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Washington. I don't doubt it. And so another way to look at positive and negative is life is positive, death is negative. Everything's relative to perspective. Negative times a positive equals a negative. Positive times a negative equals a negative. Positive times a positive equals positive. Life, cancer, or you, infection, if you want to look at how they would characterize that. Negative times a negative equals a positive. Children, cancer, life, infection. And then sperm equals negative, egg equals positive, offspring from conception equals negative. And this is all relative, it's all the context, because you can look at eggs being an antigen, a negative somebody else, because that's taking resources. If that egg gets fertilized and then becomes the baby inside the mother, then that becomes something of a negative. Okay? And so offspring from conception is negative. All right? It's because they were using resources in the mother as well as in that family. For every life, there must be a death. Who and what is being sacrificed so that others may live, which is why you must save yourself. You could be a positive holding on to so many negatives that you won't survive because you have too many opposing forces trapped in your body, which is why you must understand what disease is and what symptoms are. And if you don't, you could be cultivating something destroying you. But you can't tell people this. They have to figure it out for themselves. You could tell them 20 ways until Sunday and they would still resist you and call you a liar. So you let them deal with their own bullshit. Not that you could ever stop them, and they never needed your permission. But I do this to learn how to simplify my concepts for myself, and you get the benefit. So again, everything is relative to perspective. Children can be a great addition if you're so lonely, but they're also taken from you. So either you cultivate that you're such a lonely person, you need kids that will take from you, or you figure out, well, having kids is an upside and a downside, and how are you going to save yourself despite balancing those two forces out? And that requires understanding everything. Oh, there's motion at my door. Hold on. Oh, yeah, it's mail. Okay. All right, sorry. All right. And so yesterday I finally watched the last 5 minutes of The Walking Dead, and it took me 3 years to watch it. And so if you watch that clip from YouTube, we are the ones who are starting over. We survived. We are the ones who live. And who is we? Those that understand what's going on. Those that can change. Those that can adapt, regardless of blood type. You might have to be more strategic than somebody else. And you have to understand what you're dealing with. You have to understand that the amount of energy that you have that's working against you needs to be replaced with energy of food until you can release those demons. And that's the thing with those that, when I read that Reddit article or that Quora article, or not even article, it was a blog that someone said that they were blood type A, and a freak thing happened where they had so much infection all at once, they turned a blood type O just like that, almost overnight. Could could a person over time turn into a blood type O from blood type A and B? I would assume it happens if you have long enough, if you can live long enough and understand sickness and food. I could never promise you that. I could never say, I could never even prove that it could happen. But theoretically, if all the conditions were right, I don't see why you couldn't survive infection and change your blood type. But again, there's no proof of that. Even a blog site, but theoretically, I could see it happening if you can handle disease. Shit, the fact that I can release disease that it turn into a lymphoma or a fast-moving cancer says that you can gain disease and gain the substance and the antibodies. So if I can release antibodies that would work against me, turn into antigen, then someone who has so much of the antigen can then hold on to antibodies. But again, you'd have to understand what it feels like to release and to also gain. And it's uncomfortable either way, gaining and releasing relative to where you're coming from. It's still uncomfortable. Can you handle the uncomfortable? Is your lifestyle, can that provide you the infrastructure to gain and release relative to where you're coming from? So blood type O comes from so much to have to release a lot. And blood type A and B come from such deficits that they have to gain so much as well as release. And are they conditioned for infection? Okay. And so life-saving antibodies can convert to be antigen relative to its position outside the body. So if you can't literally produce your own protection, everything will be antigen working against you, which is why the blood type A and Bs have to be very strategic in how they do stuff. Which is why if your doctor recommends VACCINESs, even if you refuse them, you will be afflicted by something and with something. It was bound to happen, especially during climate change. Okay? And do you have what it takes to convert your body to produce an antibody against any foreign invader? Some people cannot produce something out of nothing. And if they do try to produce something out of nothing, even if it was not literally nothing, they die suddenly. They didn't have the infrastructure to protect themselves. They were missing valuable components, and they were harboring so much of the opposing forces in their body. And so I said negative energy of ABO and the RH factor plus minus, antigen plus minus, antibodies. So I showed that the antigen, when I said A times A equals -1, so it's antigen with the parentheses of plus minus antibody. Okay, so you can do a +1 or -1. What does using principle mean when it says that used principle but no antibodies? Okay, what does using principle mean? You have to eat so much food to feed the antigen, developing short-term antibodies while taking energy away from you in order to do that. Okay, so you have to eat so much food, cause body to go through an immune response, an activation. Then you produce antibodies so you can protect yourself from that antigen that even you might have to release too. And it's like when you're releasing toxic people from your life or releasing toxic things out of your house, sometimes you can't do it all at once. It has to be done in a progressive way, like the garbage. If you have so much garbage in your house, okay, let's just pretend I'm a hoarder, and you can only have 3 garbage cans at a time every week. You can't, and you didn't buy like a big dumpster. So then every day or every week you fill up those garbage cans. You still have toxic shit in your house, but you only have 3 garbage cans a week to be able to release the demons from your house. That's kind of what's going on with blood type A and B, and even O. All of that. Changing out the guard, so to speak. And can people afford to do that if there's such deficit? And that's the thing. Well, if you have a lot of money, you can go get a dumpster, and then you can purge your whole house and have everything gone. But if you don't have a lot of money, you only have the 3 garbage cans a week, then you hope that the growth in the toxicity in your house is not going to be more than what you're able to release out there on the curb every week. And so everyone's got to figure out what they can afford to do, and that's different for everyone. But again, that would require someone to analyze and bean count what energy they take on, what energy they release, their lifestyle, their belief system. I mean, this shit I love. Because I remember when I was mapping out business processes and doing, using Microsoft Visio and developing the process where I had to slow my mind down to go, okay, if I do this, then this happens. And here's the decision point here that goes here. And here's a decision point here that goes here. And this is what happens if you go here. This is what happens if you go here. And this is then how CEOs or CFOs determine who gets cut and who doesn't, where they can cut the fat, where they can save the company money, get rid of redundancy. And so that's also what you do with your own body and your own family and your own finances, is where do you cut the fat? But you'd have to know how to bean count your own freaking body and bean count in your own life. But if you're all about spending money all over the place and getting credit and doing this and doing that, and you're not maintaining stuff, and then yeah, you're not going to know how to fucking bean count. You just want someone to tell you, well, you can afford this, you can't afford this. So me being a blood type O positive, sitting through all of that biological bean counting and releasing the fat, cutting the fat, not literally, but cutting the fat and taking on whatever. Okay, that was the last 3 years, and it was brutal. And so people with blood type A's and B's must be strategic, adapting to their surroundings. What happens is they have a harder time trying to keep up with the environment, especially when it's accelerated. People who don't have antibodies for specific blood types have short-term memory, which is why people who have blood types A and B need to be careful in this new world, because they don't have enough memory to protect themselves. They have to keep eating to develop the memories to protect themselves, which is why people who have blood type A's and B's need to be careful in this new world. Okay, so A times A equals -1. Use principle, no antibody. Canceled each other out. Well, if you're hanging out with an A in a slower frequency environment, okay, it's a slow deterioration, and you both are kind of at the same type of deterioration level, and the system will play with your genes and play with whatever to keep you guys relatively equal. A times B equals +1. Use reserves, and you have an antibody. So blood type A will have a B antibody. So there's that relative equilibrium right there. There's something that, but you still have to feed yourself in order to make sure those B antibodies stay put. But you don't have to feed as much with having a B person around, because you already have the antibody protection. Okay? But A times AB equals -1 + 1 equals 1. A used principle, no antibody, plus B used reserves, antibodies. And so you have 1. -1 + 1 equals 1. So you have some kind of protection, right? And B times B equals -1. Use principle, but no antibody. Cancel each other out. In a slower frequency environment, you age together. In a high frequency environment, relative to how many predisposed issues and lifestyle and belief systems. All right, B times A equals +1. Use reserves and antibodies. B times AB equals +1 -1 equals 1. Use reserved antibodies. Plus B, yeah. And so it's +1 -1. Oh, is it? Is it -1? No, it's +1 and then -1. Okay. So it's, oh, wow. They cancel each other out, that's right. It's so weird how that shit works. And then AB times AB, -2, use principle, no antibody, cancel each other out. Then AB times A, -1 + 1 equals 1. AB times B, +1 -1. And so it's, you're negative. Use principle, cancel each other out. And then O times A times B times AB equals +4. We O's are the carriers of antibodies for everyone, which is why O negative are universal donors. However, even though O negatives are universal donors, when you breathe in someone releasing antibodies, it becomes antigen. That's where people don't understand. That's what people don't understand. Because no matter, even with the V's, it's still antigen to somebody, causing an immune response that maybe they don't have. But no matter what, whether it's through an injection or through the environment, if you don't have the reserves to develop antibodies, regardless, if you don't have the reserves, you're going into your principle until whatever is opposing inside your body takes over and causes a rapid Pac-Man situation. That's cancer, disease, chronic illness. And so the only time blood compatibility is appropriate is when you're getting a blood transfusion. Is it really appropriate to be around people with different blood types as well as getting therapies with their antigen and antibodies? And is this why people die in general? Because they hold antigens with no antibody countering force, which is the snake eating its tail? Yeah, that's what cancer is. It's a hermeticism. Hermetics. Ouroboros. That's the Ouroboros is hermetics. Blood type O might be carriers of protection for them, but as soon as their mucus leaves their body, it becomes antigen. Another blood type O can basically handle it once they release their own demons. It's the other blood types that will be in question if they can handle being around blood type O's. That's why I said those who are A's and B's out there, if you don't even know your blood type, you're flying blind. And then there's the integers rule, RH factor plus minus. Negative times a positive equals a negative. Positive times a negative equals a negative. Positive times a positive equals a positive. Negative times a negative equals a positive. Okay? So vaccines carry antigens because no matter what, anything that is not produced outside your body will be looking as antigen. The body is now forced to produce antibodies unless you're getting a therapy of monoclonal antibodies. Even then, your body still has to be able to handle that antigen. It's still an immune response. It's a helper. It will help the person develop protection. But again, everything is temporary. Nothing is permanent. And so the vaccinations process prompts the body to make memory B cells, just like you do a natural infection. If you are ever exposed to the virus again, these B cells go into action right away and release antibodies that can target the virus. These antibodies stop the virus before you get sick. But again, you still have to develop that protection. It doesn't materially happen. It has to come from someplace. You've got to have money to make money. If your money and reserves run out, then that's when these things don't work anymore and it goes into the principle. And then you get another dose of whatever. You still have to develop the energy conversion to hold the antigen in and convert it to what it needs to. And you still have to use something from your principle or reserves, but your principle. Because if you have to get a therapy, you don't have the reserves. So you still have to go to your principle. But when you're out there in public around people, you still got to go into your principle to develop antibodies. And if you can't, and if you don't, again, have enough money to afford, if you put it financially, to afford your exposure, then people die suddenly. They go bankrupt. Remember, therapies are only temporary. You still have to produce something from nothing. And getting a vaccine is no different than being around someone who is giving you their spit in the air or walking into a crowded room of ectoplasm. Will doing a preemptive strike help the person? Will getting a small load initially be better than getting a large load later? As you see, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're not meant to survive the environment, regardless of therapy status, you will contract whatever is set to trigger in your genetic line. And if you survive the environment and or the therapy, you were meant to survive the situation regardless. Okay? That's why I'm not into religion. I'm not worshiping saviors like any therapies or anyone that doesn't take a therapy. And I'm not looking for demons. I release them. I feed them and I release them. I'm not trying to attack them. I'm not trying to freeze them. I'm not trying to carve them out. I release them. I release them because they are one of the same. Now you know why some people are contracting turbo cancers and others are not. The ABO person has more negative trapped inside their body than positives. And if they have so many positive, it'll convert to a negative anyways. So you have to balance out both worlds, regardless of blood type. But a larger type O has the potential to convert energy working for them, not against them. And maybe a larger type A and B, if they can release some demons, release that antigen, more antigen than not, and have some antibodies through the food, they might be able to balance out those worlds and release the demons and stop the fast-moving cancers. But again, that would require sickness. That would require being sick. That would require food. That would require an infrastructure of support. And most people do not have that because of the fear. But at least now you understand. So with the whole compatibility of blood types, that's for transfusions. Okay? But as you can see, the transfusions are like, in a slower frequency environment, are like marriages, right? Because A plus can be with A minus in transfusions, and A minus can be with A plus. Yeah. No. A plus can be with A. Yeah, A plus can be with A. I'm looking at meeting. Okay. So A plus can be with O negative. A plus can be O positive. A plus can be with A negative. A plus can be A positive. But A plus cannot be with B negative. And A plus cannot be with B positive. And so even though the compatibilities tell you that there's compatibility as far as the blood types, what happens in a higher frequency environment when you don't have the antibodies for the antigen that you're being exposed to? And so when the poles flip, what we thought was so of rules in the old world will be completely different. And then you're going to see people who are the same blood type attack each other because now they're fighting a demon within and they're projecting out. And who's the nearest person? It's their husband, their wife. So with my situation as being an O and O, both of us are O's. We have the antibodies, but I'm O positive, so I have the Rh factor of more of the antigen than my husband does. And so I'm releasing a lot more than he is in different ways. And he has more energy in other areas, and of course his background. But then me releasing so many demons has allowed me to be to his level allowed me to adapt to him. He doesn't have to adapt to me because we have different power dynamics, financially and even strength-wise. So I had to adapt to him versus him having really to adapt to me. He adapted me just on some level, but really it's me adapting to him. Because has his life really changed? Really? No. My life has changed drastically, but has his life changed? Not necessarily. A little bit, but not really. So it's me adapting to him. And that's how shit's going to work with marriages, is who's going to adapt to who. And if they can't adapt to each other, then you have all-out conflict. And that's where diet suddenly happens. It's all about adaptation. All right, bye.